Good afternoon. Uh, my name is Wade Miller. I'm general manager of Wicha Club. I want to thank all of you for coming out today for this co-presentation by our city managers. Um, we're fortunate, and please join me in welcoming City Manager Jason Wicha and also Village Manager Drew Irvin. They're critical managers behind our community's day-to-day operations, helping guide our town's community development and public safety. Today, they will provide valuable updates on community events, from ongoing projects to groundbreaking initiatives to enhance resident experiences. Jason and Drew will share insights about our respective communities' progress. They're dedicated to ensuring that we remain informed and engaged. As the professional administrators responsible for overseeing the functioning of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, Mr. Wicha and Mr. Irvin manage our community services and facilities, ensuring they are both efficient and economically sound while consistently meeting the needs of our residents. Jason Wicha's experience, including his tenure as assistant village manager in Skokie, Illinois, enriches his leadership role, bringing a wealth of knowledge to our community. Likewise, Drew Irvin's impactful contributions during his time in Bannockburn for 5 years prior to joining Lake Bluff underscore his commitment to Lake Bluff residents. Please join me in welcoming both Jason Wicha and Drew Irvin.
I think it's on. This is on. Okay, great. Probably a little bit. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. I'm usually not accused of being too quiet, so hopefully this works all right. But thank you for having us here to share a little bit about what's happening in both of our respective communities. There's a lot going on in both Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, and it's important to us to make sure that our community, our citizens remain informed and engaged. And so we're happy to share a little bit about our story. We're going to move through these pretty quickly. We want to make sure we have time at the end for question and answer, but this is also intended to be pretty informal. So as we're going through this, if there's a topic that's of interest and you have a question, just raise your hand. We're happy to address it as they come up. So a couple of the topics that we're going to highlight today are talking about the finances of our two communities, planning and development updates going on, capital improvements. It's a busy summer in both of our communities, and construction, as you know, is a double-edged sword. And then also remind you of ways to stay connected and stay engaged with our organizations and your community. So I'm going to touch real quickly on city finances, and we always put this first. Drew and I take our show on the road pretty regularly here, and we always start with city finances because it's the backbone of everything that happens in our communities. Strong fiscal stewardship is a cornerstone and a hallmark of Lake Forest city government. We work very hard to ensure exceptionally high quality services, but also doing so in a fiscally responsible manner. We take a lot of pride in maintaining the lowest tax rate in all of Lake County. We know property taxes are a sensitive topic, and we work very hard to sort of strike and achieve that balance. We remain, as you can see on the screen, a AAA rated community. One of the things that we do, in addition to providing really exceptional day-to-day services for the residents in the community, is we focus a lot of time and resources and effort on addressing long-term liabilities. So that's not just public safety pensions, which is a big topic. I'm not going to get into it much today, other than to say we've developed a long-term sustainable model for funding our pensions. But we also invest very aggressively in infrastructure and capital improvements. And I'm going to talk a lot about specific projects a little later in this presentation, but I just want to highlight that this year we have another $23 million in capital improvements that are planned for the year. Over the last 5 years, we've spent almost $85 million in infrastructure improvements within the community, which for a town of our size is a really remarkable number. And one of the reasons we've been successful in investing so aggressively is the effort by our city staff to obtain outside grant funding, which allows us to stretch and leverage our dollars. We have about $5.7 million in grant funding going towards projects this current year, and over the last 5 years have obtained almost $20 million in grant funding. So really proud of that story. Again, I'll talk about specific projects as we move forward. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Drew here, I want to just acknowledge something we are also very proud of, which is our Triple Crown Award through the Government Finance Officers Association. We take a lot of pride in this, not just because of the access to information that we provide, through our city's website and other channels, but our ability to make that information digestible and easy to understand for your average layperson who's not familiar with municipal finance. So as you can see on the slide, out of almost 90,000 units of local government in the United States, only 356 have received this Triple Crown status. So very proud of that. Don't move the slide.
So, as Jason said, we do this presentation or presentations very similar to this all the time. I could do Jason's program and he could probably do mine. I'm somewhat lazy in this presentation. I'm gonna use some of his slide and jump to mine. But we were having a conversation while we were eating about the Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, similarities and differences in the communities. Really, my experience of the 16 years being village administrator in Lake Bluff and from the outside in and Bannockburn prior to that for 5 years is these communities are so similar and homogenous that there's very little differences, and a lot of that is hard to say, but we do things and do business government very similarly. And so Lake Bluff, just like Lake Forest, we have a AAA bond rating from Moody's. We have substantial assets being invested in our community, also funded by grants. And we do not have the Triple Crown. We did win the Derby and Preakness, but we did not get the third one, and that's a choice Lake Bluff has made. We have a very small organization, and small is the new big, and so we only have 33 regular full-time employees, and we get a lot done. But we've consciously made a choice. It's like, that's one more report to do, and we'd have to bring in and spend more money. And so some communities in the Chicagoland area aren't even doing the first or the second layer of the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association recognition of doing this additional work for transparency, and they're making a choice not to do it because it costs money and effort. But I think our communities identify that as important to reveal to the universe that we are proud of how we do our business. Lake Bluff is financially sound, and a big part of that is due to very smart land use decisions that have been made over the years in Lake Bluff to bring in car dealerships, to have a target development. We've got an enormous amount of sales tax funding the village operations, which means others are shopping there and taking those tax dollars to redo our roads, plant our trees, and beautify our community. So we're very fortunate. In fact, a third of the village's general fund is sales tax now. The next third is property tax, and then it's blended. So we're not dependent on property taxes, real estate taxes to drive a lot of our initiatives. And the good news is this is 5 years. It's not a great graph to see other than to see that current 2024, we finished last year at an all-time high for sales tax dollars, calendar year, fiscal year. So this growth continues, and cannot make enough news about that. It's really great in enabling our projects.
Okay, so I think I have a few slides coming up, but one thing that we really love to highlight as a precursor to our strategic planning process, which is currently underway, and I'm going to talk about that a little more. Last year, we undertook a comprehensive community survey to get feedback from the residents of the community on where there are levels of satisfaction, where there are opportunities for us to improve. And we were really pleased and impressed with the responses that we received. And one of the things, I won't go through, it was a 50-page report, but at a high level, what we like to highlight is when you look at the quality of life that we provide in this community and the quality of public services, the results really spoke for themselves. And I think it's a testament to what everyone in this community realizes. And I'm a resident of Lake Forest too. this is an incredible place to live. The quality of life is just remarkable. And so we take a lot of pride in that. And it doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to ensure that preservation of open spaces and the character of our architecture and business districts remains the same. The quality of the services, these things that all contribute to quality of life take a lot of work, but we were pleased to see the results of the survey, which indicated, again, just an incredibly high level of satisfaction from our residents.
Who's that 2%?
What's that?
Who's that 2% that doesn't understand?
I don't know. Probably my neighbor who doesn't like me. I don't know. Yeah, but no, I have wonderful neighbors, including one who's right here with us today. But as I noted, we just began a couple of months ago an update to our 5-year strategic plan. Our strategic plan is really the guiding document that establishes priorities and goals for the organization that are really intended to dictate and drive all decision making over the next 5 years. So whether it's policy decisions, budgetary decisions, and resource allocation, all of those decisions are intended to be in furtherance of the priorities and goals that are established in this strategic plan. The community, or I should say our organization, has not only thrived for many decades because of its commitment to long-term planning, but also to ensuring a robust public engagement portion to those planning processes. So you can see a little bit through the timeline here. I'm not going to walk through all of it, but I will just note we've had numerous public engagement sessions over the last couple of months. We're looking to wrap this process up by late summer, early fall, probably with approval by the City Council in September. Without giving too much away, because it is still in draft form, I think a lot of the or some of the major priorities that you'll see come out of this strategic plan are preserving our community's character, fiscal stewardship, infrastructure investment, community engagement and communications, really things that remain cornerstones of our community. And then what sort of goals get identified underneath those priorities will be a work in progress in the months and years to come. Speaking of big projects that are going on, and something that I think will be of interest to this group, we know we're both excited about it and a little nervous for what it's going to bring next year. But starting next spring, there's going to be significant construction happening within the Central Business District to enhance the appearance of our streetscape. Every couple of decades, your business districts need a little bit of a facelift and revitalization. And so beginning in April of next year, you can see a rendering there of the Deer Path Streetscape Improvement Project. This project is largely, there's some underground infrastructure work, but it's mostly landscape, hardscape, streetscape improvements just to, again, enhance the appearance of what really is kind of the main corridor coming into our business district. So the work will begin right around Deer Path and Oakwood, maybe just west of that near the gas station, and then we'll extend all the way east down to Western Avenue. As part of that, the City Council has had recent discussions, knowing that this work is going to be a bit disruptive, as to whether we should think about expanding the scope of the project so as to limit the number of times we're having this disruption in the business district. So we're currently in the process of going through a design analysis for making streetscape enhancements to Bank Lane as well. If you can envision starting at Bank Lane and Illinois, where the Deer Path Inn is, extending through Market Square up to Wisconsin, where Hometown Juice and Coffee is. It's a critical corridor for us. It's not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing. And so we're beginning the process of designing potential streetscape improvements for that area as well, perhaps making it more pedestrian friendly. We're going to be having numerous public engagement opportunities to get feedback from the community on what they'd like to see. So stay tuned for those, and we want to hear your feedback as well. But I will just remind everyone again, I'm trying to get the word out as much as I can. Next summer will be a little messy in the business district. We'll work very hard. I have our director of communications, Dana Olson, with us today to ensure that the public is well informed as to what's happening and what the status of the project is. But again, while everyone's going to be happy when it's done, it's going to be perhaps a bumpy couple months getting us through it. Another important project that I wanted to touch upon, and let me just ask a quick show of hands. How many of you are familiar with the discussion that has started about a potential new police station in the community? Anyone? Okay. Well, that's great. Most of you have, and kudos to Dana then. We're hopefully getting the word out. But this is a project that's come about fairly quickly for us. We've known for some time that our current public safety building, which is a combined police and fire station located on Deer Path Road, right by the middle school, is just too small. It's antiquated to meet the needs of both departments today. And we've known that for some time, but for financial and other reasons, it's a project that had always been sort of lingering on the back burner. But recently, a financial opportunity presented itself for us, taking advantage of, you know, taking a positive, in a positive sense, advantage of the depressed commercial real estate market. So there was an office building out in Conway Park. It was built in 2008. It's in great shape. It's a Class A office building. It sold for $17.5 million about 5 years ago. The city was able to enter into a purchase sale agreement to acquire the building for just $3.5 million. And so a remarkable financial opportunity for us. Something that we know that the office market is cyclical in its nature. And so this is a financial opportunity that would not have been available to us 5 years ago and probably won't be available to us again in 3 to 5 years. So we really, strategically took advantage of this opportunity to consider building a new state-of-the-art police station in the community. We know from our community survey that public safety is one of, if not the most important priorities to residents in the community. The idea behind this project is to, again, position our police department to provide exceptional service to the community for the next 30, 40, 50 years. And that's, again, a hallmark of what we do, is making decisions today for the betterment of future generations, decades from now. And the reason we are able to look out west is because the police operations are fundamentally different than what you have with the fire department. Our police officers are on active patrol at all times during the day. They're not responding from a central location of their headquarters. So where they're located really doesn't impact the level of service that they're providing in the community. By contrast, our fire department, they have to respond from a centralized location because that's where all the apparatus is, the fire trucks, the ambulances. And so really this is a project that will provide dual benefit for both departments, because by having our police department vacate the current location, it will allow opportunities for renovation to allow the fire department to expand there. They can remain at that location for the next 40, 50 years. And we're now positioning ourselves again to continue to provide exceptional public safety services for many decades to come. So just very quickly, in terms of timeline, the city council is going to be reviewing this project in greater detail throughout the month of July. We're currently in the midst of conducting a lot of due diligence on the building to understand the full structural, mechanical condition of the property, and doing some environmental reports, as well as doing a preliminary space needs analysis to get a sense of what the build out costs might look like. If the council in July chooses to execute on the purchase sale agreement we have in place, at which point we become owners of the building, we would then engage in a comprehensive schematic design to design the entire interior of the station. That's probably an 8 to 10 month process, and then another 8 to 10 months for construction. So optimistically, we could be moving our police department into a new state-of-the-art facility 18 months from now, perhaps more realistically closer to 2 years. But the opportunities it presents for us in terms of new amenities for training and other things that are just critical to law enforcement today is really exciting for us. And we're looking forward to keeping the community informed as this project evolves.
Concision is not Jason's strength. I wanted to say, I think I'm the only Lake Bluffer here. Yes. Yes. Okay. So I'll let Jason keep going. Um, uh, I'll touch on some issues in Lake Bluff, planning issues, and then we'll talk about some construction projects and some other beautifications projects. But first, a quick note on strategic planning in Lake Bluff. About 7 years ago, the village had a community-driven project where we created a new strategic plan coming off a 5-year plan before that. And that was the 2023 strategic plan. When that was written, the idea that, hey, this may have a longer life than 2023, so let's have a check-in 2023, 2024 and talk about that and see if this plan has the durability we think it does. There's a lot of evergreen elements to it. Just like Jason said, most communities that have a strategic plan, it is the blueprint for decision making in communities. And so that's in fact what happened is the village board got together over the last several months and said, you know what, this plan is still good. We're going to hold tight on it for the next couple of years. Some of that was related to COVID interrupted a lot of things, also accelerated certain things. But nonetheless, we think it's going to serve the village well for another couple of years. So actually on Monday night, the board will formally adopt that plan again for another 2 years and then re-examine where we go from there. The village is knee deep in redoing its comprehensive land use plan. Every community has one. That's the literal blueprint on how every community wants to develop. Lake Bluff and Lake Forest are largely built out, but there are still opportunities for some greenfield developments as well as redevelopment in areas. And these plans are usually 20, 30 years in mind in terms of what the land should look like and develop over time. Lake Bluff's conversation is really focused around diversity of housing, which Lake Bluff, we don't do very well in terms of diversity of housing. We have phenomenal detached single family home properties all over, but we don't have a lot of multifamily. And there is a demand in our community. We hear from residents all the time, bubbled up through the strategic planning process. And every survey we do is we want more diversified housing. We want condos, we want row homes, we want townhomes. Lake Bluff has not gotten its hands around that issue very well. In fact, we have a very small multifamily district right around our central business district, not unlike Lake Forest. Our regulations don't even allow what's there to be built today. And so there is a large push right now through this comprehensive land use plan movement to try to get the village's goals for multifamily in alignment with our regulations to hopefully facilitate new development. Like you see, Lake Forest has done a lot of this in and around its downtown and having multifamily projects. Lake Bluff just is not there yet. So that's what we're really spending our time planning right now.
Okay, well, I'll run fairly quickly through these, but I do like to highlight some of the recent capital investments. You guys heard me reference the numbers earlier about how much we've been able to invest. A couple projects that have happened over the last year or so. I'm going to point out ravine repairs. We may have some people here who live on a ravine. We've seen with the increasing intensity and frequency of storms that we've been experiencing washouts in the bottom of our ravines. Our ravines are not just a source of natural beauty, but they play a critical role in our stormwater management system as well. So there's an example. I think that might have been the Ringwood Ravine project, but we've been investing heavily in ravine repairs throughout the community. Next to that, you can see the Forest Park Bluff stabilization. That project is just completed to stabilize the entire middle section of the bluff, really just underneath Forest Park, if you can envision that. We had stabilized both the north and south ends of our beach, either through good planning or just as a result of the slide that happened at the North Beach Access Road 5 or 6 years ago. That was about a $5 million project. And with that project wrapping up, we feel very confident in ensuring the stability and integrity of the bluff for decades to come. Deer Path Community Park. This has been a project that I think wrapped up, I guess it was late fall of last year. For those that are unfamiliar, this was the installation of new synthetic turf athletic fields behind Deer Path Middle School. In addition to the athletic fields themselves, we installed 8 new dedicated pickleball courts for residents in the community. And the project has been very successful for us. We just last week, as an example, we had almost 5 inches of rain here in the community, and yet not a single game had to be canceled because of these new fields. A year ago, we would have had to close those fields for at least a week. And we know we've had such a large influx of new families into the community. Almost 25% of our housing stock has turned over in the last 4 years, a lot of them being young families who've moved into the community. We know how important athletics are. So they've been just the fields have been packed almost every single night. It's been wonderful to see and a real success for us. Looking forward to the upcoming year, a couple projects I want to highlight. For those of you who live on Lake Road or who are over there frequently, please be patient. We're going to be replacing two bridges on the north half of Lake Road, but McLennan Reed Bridge, that is just south of Spruce Road, if you can envision that. And then Lake Woodbine Bridge, which is at the intersection of Lake and Woodbine. These are two projects that just, once every 60 to 80 years, need to get done. And because it's going to be a bit disruptive, similar to what I had mentioned with the downtown streetscape projects, our goal was to do them at the same time to limit the total amount of disruption to the neighboring community. We didn't want to close the portions of the road for a period of time and then come back a year or two later and do it all over again. So both of those will be starting late fall into early winter. We're hoping that enough of the Lake Road residents will be down in Naples during the first few months of the project, but they are going to be tricky projects because we have to replace these bridges working around this network of ravines. And it's a very fragile ecosystem. So again, more to come on those. And then I just want to highlight at the bottom the Forest Park Beach Pathway Project. I just call it the boardwalk. But we're about a week away from beginning construction on the final phase of that. It's a wonderful project that I like to highlight, not just because of the value it'll bring to the community, but also because it's the latest in a long history of successful public-private partnerships really predicated on the philanthropic support of this community. And Lake Forest is so unique in having this incredible history of residents providing financial resources to give back and help support investments in this community. This project here is the result of a fundraising effort that raised almost $1.5 million in just a couple of months' time from residents within the community. So this will be a fully ADA compliant boardwalk starting up at the top at the south end of Forest Park. There will be multiple switchbacks with lookout points and benches right in the middle of the bluff. It's going to be beautiful, and we expect to have it wrapped up in early to mid-September.
I won't bore you with too much detail on some of this nitty gritty, but Lake Bluff in its sound financial planning has dedicated investments in its assets. And a lot of this is underground. You don't get to see it, or you just want to know that when you flush a toilet, it goes in the right direction. But we're doing lift station improvements to move sewage where it needs to go. We're replacing water mains over $1 million over the next 2 years. Street resurfacing and repatching, that work is going on right now in the community, over $1 million for the next 2 years. Sand sewer, about $600,000. We line our sand sewers mostly. The two end projects are noteworthy. Green Bay Road and Bridge from 176 to our southern limit, which is Lake Forest, is going to be completely redone in 2 years. And so it's going to be, you talk about disruption. So we're going to do the bridge first and then do the streets. So it'll be open to local traffic, but it's going to be a monumental project. And that bridge is overdue to be replaced, similar to the ones in Lake Forest in terms of it served its time. Interesting enough, if you drive over Green Bay Road Bridge in Lake Bluff, you look at the metal superstructure, that is purely decorative. That's actually the original bridge that was replaced 100 years before that. And it's I guess, a historic nod to the original bridge. The state has been fussing with the village trying to get us to reuse it again, but we can't because the way it was designed, you have to cut it off, and anyway, you can't reuse it. But we haven't found a clever way to repurpose it elsewhere. So, but it was a clever design, and it won an award about 80 years ago. 41-176 interchange is in the state's multi-year plan. What does that mean? Well, I think it means it'll happen in my lifetime. It's a 5-year plan. It's at this point, when I first came to Lake Bluff 16 years ago, it was about a $30 million project. It's now an $85 million project. And it's being funded by the state. The village got involved years ago and started the project with phase 1 money. I think you helped us, Susan, with that many moons ago. Thank you very much. And if it wasn't for the village initiating, who knows when that would be done. But it's at the point now where we're ready to be have construction take place. So probably within 5 to 7 years is when that'll happen. However, as early as this fall, they could start some stormwater pumping improvements those areas there and north of there by the viaduct as you head north out of town floods regularly, and the state has been desperate to get new pumps installed and move the stormwater out of there, and so the road doesn't flood anymore. They've been caught up with a procurement requirement which forces you have to source pumps domestically, and there is no domestic made pump at this size, and so they've been trying to get a pass on that. It hasn't happened yet, but the state's pretty sure that's going to happen right before the election this fall. So we'll see, but they want to get that done very soon. Jason talked about streetscape improvements. About 2 years ago, the village redid 2/3 of its downtown. We didn't do the area in Block 1, which is the newest part of a streetscape in the community, right there. If you know where Mavry's and Lake Bluff Brewery is, that area, that's Block 1. But the rest of the downtown we did redo, and we did it for a song. We did it for under $700,000. The timing was perfect. I don't know what that would cost today, but we got away with it. Super great timing, and it gives you any idea how much prices have gone up. We're going to actually do all the planting there. This is just an example of that, right in front of Innovasi, that corner where it's been turf forever. We're going to install flowers, shrubs, perennials. But these are all the squared area shows everywhere we're going to plant. So it's 2/3 of our downtown. That's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. And that was something that our architectural board review, after we redid all the streetscape, all the hardscape, they said, hey, you know what, let's sit on it for a while and see how people interact with it before we do the final plan. So not only are we going to do that landscaping, we're also going to put in new street furniture, and that's going in all before the 4th of July as well. So that's an exciting project. Block 1, the last segment, we applied for a grant last year, didn't get it. We've applied for a different grant this year, and then if we don't get that, the board's going to have to make the decision: do we do it on our own or not? But I suspect they want to do that. Exciting, and this is I think another example of how communities like Lake Bluff and Lake Forest do a lot of work, community-driven plans, and then execute those plans. A lot of communities do plans and they sit on the shelf. These are happening. Some other beautification projects that are happening. The village just completed right at the McClory Bike Trail. I don't know how many cyclists here, but go up and down where the McClory and North Shore bike trails meet. We just put in a bikes repair station. If somebody has to get in, pump up tires or service their bikes, there's tools there. A new bench and landscaping that was done by a gift from the village's 125th anniversary committee. They donated the funds to do that, and we got a lot of landscaping in at the same time with that. That was just completed. I was talking earlier with Phoebe about the Glen Avenue footbridge is about 100 years old. We took it down about a month ago, and we finally have a new bridge that is being built. Most of it's being paid by a donation from a resident. Funny enough, I was having a conversation with a gentleman. He was saying, you know, I'm putting my will together and getting all my estate together, and I'm going to make a sizable donation to the village's fire department. And I said, well, that's fantastic. I said, would you care to buy a bridge? And just joking. And he said, yeah, well, tell me more about it. There it is. So ordinarily we would put in a bridge that would probably be like a lot of public bridges that are designed to be, they look like they're already rusty when they go in, right? So corten steel and a lot of concrete, but it's a beautiful bridge. It's painted metal with Ipe decking and railing, and it's a bridge that it's going to last us at least another century. So this resident wanted to make sure it was beautiful and was involved in the design. The community helped design it. It's a nod to the bridge that was taken down, and actually it's architecturally very similar to the first bridge that was put there in the 1800s. So that's going in a week from today. So if you like construction and you want to see Jason talked about building over ravines, we're dropping this bridge and setting in place under a huge canopy. So they're going to have to thread the needle. So that should be exciting. The beach is now open down at Lake Bluff. The North Shore Water Reclamation District has been building an underground overflow basin for the last year and a half, and they didn't finish on time, but they didn't want to fall short of their agreement to be off the beach this summer, so they pull out. They'll be back in the fall to finish it, and when they do, they'll do a lot more landscaping and more or less put lipstick on the pig. It's not ever ideal to have a pumping station down there, but they're going to build like a courtyard around it, add some outdoor showering stations, and put in permanent restrooms and really elevate the space, which has been lacking since this was installed back in the 60s. I think that's all I'll cover on that.
Okay, well, we'll just conclude the presentation by reminding you that there are many different ways for you to stay engaged and stay informed as to what's happening in the city. I, again, gave a plug to our communications director who's here with me. We use a lot of different platforms to disseminate information, and we believe that an informed community creates a more engaged community. So we certainly have our city website. If you haven't signed up for our weekly e-news, we have what, Dana, almost 7,000 subscribers? Oh, not even close. 11,000 subscribers, and does a great job of keeping people informed of what's happening. We have our dedicated mobile app, which I know Phoebe has referenced using, which where you can do everything from report service requests if there's a tree branch down in your parkway, to checking beach parking availability, to paying any utility bill. We are on a variety of social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We have a wonderful Lake Forest Love blog, which is authored, many of the articles authored by on Wednesday's own David Sweet, and does a really great job in telling some of the unique stories that help make Lake Forest such a special place. And then, of course, our quarterly dialogue newsletter. I just got mine in the mail yesterday, and so hopefully you did as well. So please stay informed, stay engaged, and thank you for having us.
Yeah, and I'll just say ditto. And the only thing I would add is if you haven't signed up for Smart 911, you should do so. That's a service that both the village of Lake Bluff and the city of Lake Forest and many of our partners that we do public safety dispatch with, it's another way to stay connected. If you need, we use it to alert folks if we're doing, construction work in the area. It's a great way to stay involved. And also you can put information about your family or your situation at home. If you have pets at home, so everybody, you can let people know that if you need public safety services, you can upload as much data about your situation as you want, and in terms of informing those of us who are providing the services, show up prepared. So Smart 911 apps on both of our websites, easy to find. Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience and listening to us.
Any questions?
What's going to happen with the Harrison nonprofit?
So great question. And the answer is everyone expects that to be redeveloped someday. How soon? I'm not certain. There was litigation a few years back between the developer and the village. There was a settlement reached. The developer wanted a clean slate in terms of going back to the original estate zoning. Nobody expects that to be a single family home, 40 plus acres off Green Bay Road. It's that back up to the Forest Preserve. It's going to get redeveloped with a number of homes on it. There hasn't been a lot of activity and projects of that size and scale. If you think about it, anyway, in Illinois, there's not a lot of subdivisions like that being built. And I think only up until recently, I think the other large, I'll call it greenfield like that left was in Glencoe, the old Hoover estate. There's some slight momentum there. That is also sat idle. There's just not a lot of large real estate deals like that happening because of market conditions. But we see the village fully expects and wants it to be redeveloped with housing, residential, and maybe even with some of that missing middle housing that talked about, maybe some combination of townhomes. The previous development that ultimately failed back in '08 had the existing manor home and the gatehouse were going to be carved up into condominiums. I think a total of 18 units back then. So it was going to have multifamily, and it had attached housing as well. So I think there was like 47 attached units and the rest were single family. So I think it's some residential development that would have a variety of housing types is probable, but nothing imminent.
Yeah.
Well, I'm successful in my opinion. Chair, and My experience has been through doing small investment, senior citizens foundation, it's touring a lake or really well facility, which I think is extremely important for those of us who are seniors. Probably the girl who is part of communities. I can have you view them, you deal with each other, you share the expenses, the benefits.
There's an intergovernmental agreement between the village and the city that probably predates both of our births. But it for years we've worked together very well on providing services such as for seniors, for the youth through Croya. We share we buy building plan review, examination, and inspection services from the city of Lake Forest. The village has for years. We've also purchased ambulance services from the city for years. We just don't have, I mean, we average less than one ambulance run a day in Lake Bluff. It makes no sense for us to operate our own ambulance. We also have a kind of quasi volunteer paid on call fire department. And the idea of staffing that is not easy with that type of staffing. So it makes all sense in the world for us to take advantage of the economies of scale. Jason gets to charge me very high rates
Hopefully higher. So I don't know.
to pay for a service that would be sitting idle anyway, right? So the idea that there's great advantages to us as a smaller community, and we just don't have the demand that we can piggyback on those services. That so both communities again can take advantage of that and be able to provide high level of services for a variety of folks in the most economical way, probably in most situations. I mean, there are communities that come to us and ask us about, hey, tell us how you're doing this. And again, homogeneity helps, and we can do things a lot of communities can't get away with. I'm trying to think of another service. Back in the day, we used to do joint video production. The agreement has expanded and contracted over time depending on the needs of the community. Right now, the senior services are looking at doing a project, and the village is going to be part of that. In terms of adding units, senior housing, so it is just a phenomenal economy of scale that both of us can take advantage of.
I don't think negotiating each other. And the two of you.
It's varied over time. Sometimes it's been simple as he and I, or he and his predecessor, or sometimes it's involved an alderman, or even sometimes it's elevated to the chief elected officials of the communities, the village president and the mayor of Lake Forest. That it depends on the issue. Generally, we get along extremely well, and I think we're reasonable people, and it works very well. I mean, it's
I try to take them out for beers to soften them off.
that's right.
My approach.
Yeah, right. But no, it works. I think it works out well, and that we know, at least we try to educate ourselves on what the market holds as consumers, and if we can do it ourselves better, um, or or hire somebody else, a private sector entity, to do it. But for now, it's worked out well, and I see that continuing in some capacity for a variety of services over the years. As an example, when the Target development came in, Lake Forest did not have the capacity to take on that project and the inspections demanded through that window of construction. We outsourced it. We found a different company can do it. Private sector, we don't take on the legacy cost, and all that makes sense. So we can be very nimble in that regard. But also, there's like these arrangements for senior services or youth services that are going to serve for decades. Those are the great opportunities to take advantage of. Yes, sir.
Property in New York. And then you can do that.
I can show you some plans. I can take you to my office and we can maybe crack a project there. Yeah. Yeah. That has been the issue, scale. Yeah. The village has identified on its comprehensive land use plan to have that property transition from its central business district to detached single family. I think Lake Forest does that in 3 blocks. We're trying to do it in 5 lots. So it's really difficult. And so the scale has been the kicker. I would say a handful of developers have been run out of town with pitchforks and torches, who have presented things that are too tall. part of the village's missing middle housing study is looking at that property as well as the north side of Block 1, where the village is a property owner, and where the village was probably the majority property owner when Block 1 got redeveloped, the south side. But that the owner of, to answer your question directly, the owner of the 3 western lots, which includes the bank, lives overseas, but used to be a Lake Bluffer and has connections to the community, comes back regularly. And the eastern 2 lot owner lives 3 houses to the east. So good news is there's only 2 landowners we're dealing with. And but the village most certainly wants to see that developed. And if it can be 2 stories, then that will happen or could happen very quickly. Anything bigger than that is going to take time and may not happen. But it's a property that is sadly not taking it's some of the best real estate in Lake Bluff. You know, you're half a mile from the lake, you're right in our downtown, you're right by the train. It's fantastic property. And every realtor that I've spoken with has said they would sell that building out in an hour. Because there's so many people in town that are ready to downsize, and there's nothing available in town. And that's when it happens, it'll be missing middle housing. It will not be affordable housing. It'll be market. It'll be very expensive. I think everybody's looked at it, said, anything from like 7 to 1.4 in terms of pricing per unit. But it's hopefully something happens soon. Yes, sir.
Slide of communications further the fall. That too, this whole area is up to the tornado. It was a sudden that pushed the left and two to the other all and then silence went off like flash. And my wife and I said, well, we'll go to the basement now. And I guess, is there any of the communication things that would tell us specifically what to do in that kind of a situation, or do you just allow the meeting?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In fact, we had some conversations as a result of that incident about things we can be doing. We don't make, the initial determination to issue a tornado warning or a tornado watch. But once that happens and once the sirens are triggered, what communications tools can we take advantage of so people can understand what that means and what steps they should take? So it's not something we have done to date, but it is something we're looking to do as we move forward. But as a general rule, you should take shelter. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Sir.
The big outdoor deck chair coming back.
Sorry?
Outdoor deck chair, a downtown Lake Ball.
We're going to move to the Village Green. Think of the beach. Do you like it?
I just
We're not fans. We got a lot of feedback. Say, what's this doing?
I know.
This is not for. Although Lake Bluff has its roots as a resort community, but we're going to bring it back. We were actually talking about this. A guy who built this lives in town. So Bob Roden, and it's been out of the country for a long time. I saw him last weekend. I said we need to get together. He told me that if we put it somewhere not like a hard surface, that he'd want to put like a shoe on it, so it would damn yourself. Yeah. So that's what we're waiting on.
I just remember I walked. Well, speaking of the Glen Avenue Bridge, my friend Paul Witt lived at one end.
Great Bob.
Yeah,
Great.
I walk with him every morning or every other morning.
Okay.
Lake Bluff Beach or Lake Forest Beach.
Yeah.
Sunrise. So I've seen all the construction at Lake Bluff Beach, obviously.
So a week from today, do your walk. It's going to be intense.
He doesn't. Well, of course, the sign is hilarious. It says
Is he the
when
one
it's supposed to
changing?
be. No, but it's funny to look at. Now it says 2026. I
We
think.
gave up touching. Like, I'll laugh along.
Now, what happened? Why it was delayed? I mean, that was the
No,
reason.
it's-
Because it said it'd be
There
done
was-
by.
The one thing that's had this horrible cascading effect was there was the structural engineer who failed to account for one type of move. And I don't know if it was, I forget which one, that the guy who was out there building the footing said, "Hey, just making sure you thought about this." And the engineer said, "Whoops." So there was that field change set this back.
Because we're a week from today.
So then you got out of, we had a line set up with the bridge is coming from Pickens, South Carolina.
It's in one piece.
2 pieces.
Okay, I
It's
want
going to be assembled on site.
Okay.
And so, but it's that bridge delivery date, they're, instead of being where they're in Texas, you got bumps. So right, there's you place in line. If you move, then you got to wait. So that's why now it's a go on Thursday. And then the crane guy, this is a national board, it's now, or they're a national outfit. They've been to this site 4 different times and decided Wednesday morning that they need a bigger pad for the crane. So tomorrow, Campanella is hauling in clay. So we're having to hustle and get all this in so they can have the pad that they want to set their cantilever, set their 3 feet
There's a
down.
suspension bridge.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the middle,
Right.
which there was before.
Right.
In the previous.
So we even looked at, well, can we set it in sections so that you have a smaller crane? And like build some sort of scaffolding to hold it up. And they said, no, just
Can't use the crane you've had at the beach for years.
anyway, but it's finally happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, so
It's Thursday or Friday,
Friday, we can say Friday.
closing that process, it's pretty soon, probably.
and then,
You're going to reach out and make what for?
Well, so we're moving back to the original.
Oh, nice.
You want to keep one.
I'm sure.
Can't do that. But I mean, we don't, I threw up here, but we were considering both, but at a price point, there was, what?
It's hardly,
Available.
it's hardly mandatory anyway.
it was like 2 months ago.
Yeah. Anyway, so we find. Yeah. So yesterday, I'm not sure I'm gonna want it for trying to think your current market. And Boulder foothills. And so.
A lot of wildfire problems.
That's what we're.
Oh my God, almost got you. Until a week ago, I was federally wildfire fighting certified.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It's part of it.
Yeah.
I started watching about fire risks and their housing insurance markets or
Yeah, it's tough.
apps.
Yeah.
They're all like tough stuff. Like,
Wow.
started same thing. Right.
Application.
Application.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, yeah, someone in fire. So we'll see if there's an interest.
Awesome. Thinking about
Guys who go, because they do get
they get stipends. Yeah, that's.
Oh, I know.
something.
There was totally volunteering. That's
Yeah. It's a simple one.
yeah. Our expectation. I got a $50 gift card.
Okay. We're a little better than 50, but not a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. There's restrictions in which of course. Yeah. But that's fantastic. Thank you.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
I started doing some grant writing
Yeah.
for me, which I'm so impressed with. You see that. Or you
Yes, you're getting. There's that firefighters, assistant training from the
Yes.
Yeah. Great success.
Department, yes. Well, I know what's.
On ours?
Yeah.
You seem to cheers.
Ours, yeah.
Yeah.
21 to 2 are twins, 25 years old,
Okay.
and have electronics that can't be replaced. Nice. Fire hydrants, and such takes their lives.
So replace it's $1 million and we'll see you in 2 years.
Too. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. It was $1 million. Now it's
Yeah.
$1 million too.
Yeah.
And it's more for these engines because they have to carry 1,200 gallons of water and they have to be built.
Right.
So it's even worse. But anyway, we could, they'd have no.
Well, we that's surprising. We have our chief is a volunteer chief who's been there since 78 in some capacity, but he's got it down to an art. He's a very dynamic, charismatic guy. It's one of the things that keep me up at night that we wouldn't have people show up and call us with an issue, and the part of it is the equipment. Like you have these Pierce snow trucks, which are like the Mercedes of fire trucks. We've
Right.
got phenomenal gear. We've got Great training. The Esprit de Corps is phenomenal. We're really fortunate.
So I'm gonna see
It's
if I can
great.
add. I mean, I'm weak on the medical, so.
Well, for what's worth, we're we'll do ALS, but we don't transplant. So we have we'll do run vitals and hospital, the Northwestern Force Hospital here is really pushing all departments to operate with the highest end of the license. Right? They want you, right?
That's great.
Yeah, so they're encouraging folks to push that way, do this,
There was
Yeah.
2 or 3 programs.
Okay.
I think they could know. It could be 15-minute response time.
Yeah.
So it's hard. But anyway,
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
well, we'll see. We'll see if
Yeah.
they want me and if like,
Wow. All right. But the chief has a place out in Breckenridge.
oh,
So you guys, that's a good
Well, it's
conversation.
interesting.
Yeah.
challenges.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for introducing.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Well, it's fair. Always very proud. You're very proud. What's up, Steve? No, you've been, yeah. No, wow.
I walk for, I mean, I've been like this, all the way walk, all like Bluff.
Yeah.
Two of them squeeze. What's happening to this poor guy? Died suddenly with trans. He actually they're giving him an award and he's close.
Here's it. My from organization resident kind of food wants to live down in the town lounge. Now, it's the house, the another but he's telling my barbs, he's been around and so kids on their bicycles like past kids go to the trial house and then go I was working out here at the hospital and she had a daughter who's gone to sour. Yeah, seems like so far, but since this neighbors have been helping out trying to get things new ready. He has me in me. He's 6 and
So they figured with it and fight that speaker news to like
yeah. Even like during, I don't know, this silver drive, he wrote son. So she's like, oh, I know this bike's when he was 9 years old past that, and much like boys around. Yeah, just, it's great. Let's 36 and listen to what new sectors. Yeah, don't get new file. It was here, some ministry. It was really beautiful Christian in the seasonal leaf form. That's how leaf form. So it's really, my problem.
Yeah.
But it's just coming. Take life.
This was much.
Yeah, reimbursement. But it's not right. You see what you know.
So, which I don't.
Well, so, but that's a big deal. Almost everybody here outsources the maintenance of the lines. So there's right, there's a cacophony of right, and so if there are needs that there was a teaching center.
posters and
And it was really good. People usually no, it's something like, what is this? Is it a list? And and inside of it, like it's a lot of small lots, and it's a tighter density. So I'm like, I don't like to do this. So they said, is there something we can do? And so there was a North Shore Star from Evanston up to Lake Bluff, which other communities jumped on, and it was 11 and 15 things around things to listen. We need change. What do you think?
Yeah.
Uniform. Thanks. Yeah,
Don't interrupt.
IGA.
Roy, I get it.
With both seniors too, because we're about to finalize new IGA with the foundation.
and it impacts you.
Okay, let's do it.
For the worst, because they're a fully funded position.
Well, we planned for the Croy thing.
Yeah, oh, perfect, so let's just clean up, because we'll clean that one up, but then you guys get a break on the seniors.
We're doubling the price of the kids. But,
Yeah,
thank you. Nice to meet you.
but, next week, thanks, next week. Yeah.
No.